guys, Kel here with another video for Cat Scrappiness. Today we're going to be using the Everyday Brushstroke stamp set in order to create a kind of matching pair of cards. So what we're going to go ahead and do is start with the longest single brushstroke, as well as the happy birthday sentiment. So let's go ahead and get started. So what I did was I not really adhered, but just stuck it down, this longest brushstroke to an acrylic block. And we're going to be using the Distress Oxide inks in the following colors: Fossilized Amber, Salty Ocean, and Peacock Feathers. So it's a nice kind of like oceany, but with that yellow. So I took a piece of cardstock and I used my stamp. And so what I did was I wanted yellow to be my middlemost color. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with that color in the middle so that everything kind of lines up nicely and evenly on the card. So this is me just grabbing a piece of scrap paper, which I like to stamp on to not get my work surface too dirty. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to stamp this down, kind of trying to center it on the right side, because we're going to rotate our card and stamp it again to make one really long brush stroke. That's the whole goal. And then in between colors, of course, you want to clean off your stamp. So we're going to clean off our stamp as best as we can. And then what I like to do as well is sometimes you'll see me push down on that scrap paper to try and get a little bit of the moisture off so that the stamp isn't too wet when we put it back on the block. So next we're going to go with our Salty Ocean. What we're going to do is we're going to try and line it up as close to the edge as possible on the top and bottom of that yellow. And then again, we're going to rotate the card and stamp it all over just to make sure that we have, you know, nice long brush strokes going across our card. And this Distress Oxide inks, they stamp so nicely and so rich and like colorfully, but it kind of has this chalky kind of look to it, which is really, really nice too. So it's different from the original Distress Oxide. The regular Distress inks, if anybody has had a chance to use both of them in comparison. And then the last one we're going to use on this card is the Peacock Feathers. And then that one, again, we're going to stamp top and bottom, above and below the blue Salty Ocean color that we just stamped. And then rotate the card and stamp it again to make your long completed brush strokes. And what's nice about this brush stroke is that you don't have to worry if it doesn't stamp cleanly all the way through. Like you can see in my green and my blue, like there's a little bit of splotchy areas where you can see the white through it. But it's okay because it looks like individual brush strokes versus, you know, this uniform kind of cleanly, completely stamped brush stroke set. So I'm going to put that on the side and I'm going to grab another piece of cardstock and 3 more colors of Distress inks. And those are going to be Candied Apple, Abandoned Coral, and Spice Marmalade. So this time I wanted my dark red, which is the Candied Apple, to be my middle color where that yellow is in the blue set. And again, we're going to try and center it, stamp it down, rotate it, and stamp it again. And so you're going to see me do this with all 3 colors. Again, making sure to clean my stamp. And you just saw me try to clean my fingers in between to try and avoid getting ink down on the card where it's not supposed to be, because we want a nice white clean background on that. But if you notice, what's going to happen is I'm going to actually end up making a spot of this Abandoned Coral color on the card. And I think it's because my band-aids, my thumbs are super dry and they cracked and they're gross. So I covered them up with band-aids. But I think my band-aid got a little bit of ink on it. And so it made a little, I guess this pinkish reddish color spot on the card, which I'm going to show you in a second. See right there. But it's okay. We're not going to worry about it. We're going to cover it up. So it's not something that you want to worry about or have to start over again, especially because it's such a small spot. There's always tricks that we can use to, you know, try and cover it up and make the card all better. So the last color we're going to use is this fossilized amber. And once again, we're going to stamp it above and below. So I'm just using a regular disposable baby wipe in order to clean my stamps. Normally I would use my Lawn Fawn stamp chamois, but I can't find it. So we've just reverted to what we've used before the stamp chamois came out, which is baby wipes. I'm also sticking on that happy birthday sentiment that I know I'm going to use later. So this is the stamp set from Concord and Ninth. It's the Dahlia Turnabout, which is a really fun set to use. So I'm just going over this corner with my embossing buddy. And what it's going to do is it's going to help keep embossing powder from sticking in places that I don't want it to stick. So I'm going to go in here, this gorgeous word, script word, onto a bigger acrylic block and then use my Versamark pad. And I like to keep my Versamark extra juicy just because it helps with the stamping, especially because I pretty much only use my Versamark for embossing. But I'm going to go ahead and stamp this gorgeous sentiment in the corner, making sure to press down nice and firm. And then grab some of my black embossing powder and sprinkle it on there and try and tap off as much as I can. And there's some that doesn't tap off really nicely. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I have this really cheap paintbrush. It actually came out of one of my kids' watercolor sets for school that they didn't use the brush. So I kept the brush and I use it to kind of brush off all of that extra embossing powder that sticks. So what I'm doing now is I'm off screen using my heating tool because it's plugged in at a different area. So I'm just heating that up and melting that embossing powder. And now you can see that it's done. So I'm going to go ahead and do this again, but this time on my red card. This one I actually forgot to use my embossing buddy to take off or to get that area nice and, cling free. So it's going to take me a little bit longer to brush off some of that extra embossing powder because there was a little bit more that stuck around. So you can tell that it does make a difference whether or not you use it. And again, off screen to melt the embossing powder. And now that we're done, we're going to put it away. And what's nice about using scrap paper to stamp on is that when you are done with your scrap paper, because it's just something you would throw away anyway, we're just going to go ahead and throw it away. So now I'm just going to use a nice black pigment ink pad because I don't have to worry about coloring or anything like that. I just want it to dry really nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp that happy birthday sentiment right above the word gorgeous. And I'm going to do that on both cards. And so now you see I have some pieces of colored cardstock that I had pre-cut. So the card that I have the gorgeous stamped on measures 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And then it's sticking onto a 4-inch by 5 1/4 inch mat, which is going on your A2 card. So you'll see that it frames up really nicely. It has nice even borders all the way around. And so the reason why I chose these colors of inks to use is because they actually match really nicely to these sequin sets. So this is the Turquoise Sunrise, which has these blues, turquoises, and this yellows. And then this is the Tutti Frutti, which has this reddish, orangish, yellowish color to it. So they match really nicely to those sequin sets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour some of these sequins out inside my dish. And for those of you who are interested, this was from Target's Dollar Spot. And it's a nice ceramic 2-section dish, which is nice because I can set up, 2 different sets of sequins at the same time without having to worry about them getting mixed up. And then I'm going to just kind of speed through this end here. And all it is me using some liquid glue to attach down some sequins. And you can see on the bottom there, I covered up that ink spot. So now we don't have to worry about a ruined card. And if you notice, I'm kind of just sticking the sequins around randomly, but trying to keep that triangular kind of pattern that helps, with design. So your eye kind of travels through the card. And those are my two cards. So thanks for stopping by, and I will see you again soon.